The modern-day storyline in Assassin's Creed has always had a very mixed reception from the community. A lot of people believe it is necessary and baked into the very identity of what Assassin's Creed is, while others would prefer to not bother with it and focus on the past storyline. And it seemed for a while Ubisoft wasn't exactly sure what they wanted to do with the modern day and the direction they wanted to take it. The way it was first introduced through the lens of Desmond Miles in AC1, who was a seemingly normal, everyday average Joe, put in a very mysterious situation. It was ominous and it had so much potential for an intriguing story, and whether what follows in that story actually delivered depends on who you ask. Desmond, of course, served as the modern day's protagonist until his unfortunate death in Assassin's Creed 3 in 2012, which was now over a decade ago. And regardless of what you thought of Desmond as a character, he was the anchor that held the overarching modern day storyline together from AC1 through the entirety of the Ezio trilogy and AC3. And after his death, while the modern day storylines of each individual game were still somewhat interesting, it was incredibly messy and disjointed, often following someone new for a separate storyline in each game, none of which were actually named or voiced, of course, until Layla in Origins, where it seems they finally realized that if they were going to make a new overarching modern day storyline, they were going to need a new Desmond, a new modern day protagonist to follow over several games, and I for one was all for this. My interest in the modern day storylines in Assassin's Creed fizzled out for the most part after the departure of Desmond, but with Layla's story, especially after the ending of Valhalla, and more recently the last chapter, my interest has been piqued once again. This is the most excited I've been for a modern day story arc in Assassin's Creed in a long time, and of course, to add on to that, with the ending of Valhalla, we were sort of reunited with Desmond in the form of the reader, so with Desmond and Layla searching timelines to prevent more apocalyptic disasters, and Sean, Rebecca, William, and Basim in the modern day timeline with another world-threatening event, the modern day seems to be building towards a climax yet again. But with the reader appearing in Valhalla, does this mean that the return of Desmond Miles in physical form is inevitable? Well, first of all, we're not really sure if that's even possible, but I'm positive the writers could find some way to bring him back, especially considering Layla is also kind of dead, or is she really? Point is, yes, I think the return of Desmond Miles in some capacity has to be inevitable. I'm almost certain it'll happen. I find it hard to believe they'd put him in the end of Valhalla and then just never bring him back. It felt like they were foreshadowing his return in Valhalla quite a bit, not only with Sean and Rebecca, but they had lots of new voice recordings and mentions of Desmond before he even appeared as the reader. I know some people think the end of Valhalla was more so a conclusion for Desmond and Layla's characters, but with the world in peril once again, I find that very hard to believe. It felt more like the rising action than the conclusion to me. Something has to come of those two in the gray, I would imagine. But then another question is, when will we ever see the result of that? Well, it's almost certainly not going to happen in Mirage. We already know that modern day isn't going to play a big role in Mirage and will likely be just William or whoever is living through Basim's memories to better understand his true goals and intentions. But what's most likely is the overarching story will be told through Project Infinity, since that is supposed to be the Animus-like hub for all the Assassin's Creed games and will supposedly house the modern day stories from now on, which, if done right, could be very cool. Having this story that connects over all the new games and can all be accessed through Infinity, I think that way it makes it easier to keep the story cohesive, since rather than being told through multiple different games, the story can just pick up where it left off in Infinity. Especially with Darby McDevitt writing the story, he's kind of the brainchild of this new modern day arc, so this way he can tell a story and plan it out the way he wants. And of course, when you have Nolan North, one of the most well-known video game voice actors, actors voicing Desmond and agreeing to come back for these moments in Valhalla, it's not too far-fetched to imagine he'd want to come back with perhaps an even bigger role once again. It's clear to me this is all building to something pretty big with the modern day, and it's hard to believe Desmond won't be a part of it in some way, shape, or form. Maybe we're finally building to a grand conclusion of the modern day, but you have to keep in mind that this series is pretty much endless, so the story will likely be stretched out over quite a long time, I imagine. And then who knows, maybe we get an ending to that and a new modern day storyline begins. I'm not really sure. But I personally believe Desmond is coming back, and Ubisoft is probably well aware that bringing back this character would get a lot of excitement from some of the older fans. But this is just my opinion, of course. Let me know down in the comments if you think Desmond's return to the series is inevitable, and if you're excited for the future of the modern day. As always, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and considered subscribing to the channel if you're new. I also have a channel membership if you'd like to join for special perks. And other than that, thanks for watching, and have a good rest of your day, Assassins.